Shadows at dawn. The amber glow of sunrise hadn't yet touched the top floors of the Kingsley Tower when Marcus Kingsley inserted his keycard into the executive elevator. At 43, the lines etched around his eyes spoke of 15-hour workdays and relentless ambition that had built Kingsley Innovations from a garage startup to a technology empire. Sleep had eluded him again, the Japanese investors' meeting loomed, and the quarterly projections looked grim. The elevator climbed silently to the 52nd floor. Marcus loosened his tie slightly, enjoying the solitude of the early hour. No assistants fussing over his schedule, no board members demanding explanations, no endless parade of problems requiring his immediate attention. Just silence, the kind he rarely experienced anymore. When the doors slid open, he expected darkness. Instead, a soft lamp illuminated his executive suite's waiting area. Voices, one hushed and gentle, another small and tearful, drifted from inside his office. Marcus paused, his hand instinctively tightening around his briefcase. "Your daddy works very hard to make sure you have everything you need," came the soothing voice of Olivia Winters, his executive assistant of 3 years. "But I don't need everything. I just need him," replied a small hiccuping voice that made Marcus's heart drop to his stomach. Sophia, his 9-year-old daughter. He moved silently toward the partially open door and froze at the sight. Olivia sat in his leather chair. Her usual professional demeanor softened as she gently rocked Sophia in her arms. His daughter's face was tear-streaked, her dark hair, so like her mother's, falling in tangles around her shoulders. "How did you even get here, sweetheart?" Olivia asked, brushing hair from Sophia's face with a tenderness that made Marcus's throat tighten. "I took my birthday money and got a taxi. The driver didn't want to take me, but I told him my dad owns the building." Sophia's small shoulders lifted with a hint of pride that would have been comical in any other circumstance. Olivia shook her head but couldn't hide her impressed smile. "That was very resourceful, but also very dangerous. Mrs. Henderson must be worried sick." Mrs. Henderson was sleeping. "She always sleeps. And Daddy promised to take me to the planetarium today." Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. "He forgot again." The accusation lanced through Marcus like physical pain. He had forgotten. The planetarium visit had been scheduled 3 times and canceled 3 times. Yesterday, he'd been so absorbed in the Tokyo proposal that when Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper, had called to confirm, he'd dismissively told her to reschedule. Again, sometimes grown-ups have to... Olivia began, but Sophia cut her off, changed their plans. "I know." The resignation in his daughter's voice sounded wrong, too adult, too familiar with disappointment. Marcus watched as Olivia reached for the family photo on his desk, the only personal item in the meticulously organized space. It showed Marcus, Sophia, and Catherine, his late wife, at the beach 2 summers before Catherine's cancer diagnosis. "Your daddy loves you very much," Olivia said softly. "Then why isn't he ever home?" Sophia asked. The question hung in the air as Marcus found himself stepping forward, the floor creaking beneath his Italian leather shoes. Both heads turned toward him, Olivia's expression shifting instantly to professional composure, Sophia's eyes widening with a mixture of hope and wariness that cut him to the core. "Daddy?" Sophia whispered. And in that moment, in the early dawn light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, Marcus Kingsley, whose net worth exceeded 8 figures, who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals, found himself completely, utterly speechless. Reflections in glass. The following week passed in a blur of awkward moments and tentative connections. Marcus had arranged for Sophia to stay with him in his downtown penthouse, rather than at their sprawling suburban mansion. The corporate apartment, with its minimalist decor and stunning views, felt suddenly sterile when occupied by a 9-year-old girl. "Your coffee, Mr. Kingsley," Olivia said, placing the steaming cup on his desk. Through the glass walls of his office, they could see Sophia sitting in the conference room, swinging her legs as she colored in a book Olivia had thoughtfully provided. "Thank you." "Olivia," Marcus replied, his eyes not leaving his daughter. "And thank you for..." "The other morning," Olivia followed his gaze. "She's an extraordinary child." "She is," Marcus agreed, feeling the unfamiliar weight of guilt pressing on his chest. "I've missed so much." The reflection of both adults watching Sophia appeared like ghosts in the glass walls, transparent, ephemeral, easily overlooked. Marcus suddenly wondered how many other moments had passed through his life unnoticed while he chased the next acquisition, the next product launch, the next milestone of success. "The Japanese investors are waiting in the video conference room," Olivia reminded him gently. And Mr. Harrington called again about the merger talks. Marcus nodded, reality intruding. Kingsley Innovations was facing its most challenging quarter yet. Falcone Technologies had been circling like vultures, looking for weaknesses to exploit in a hostile takeover attempt. The timing couldn't be worse for a personal epiphany. "Move the investors to tomorrow. And tell Harrington I'll call him back," Marcus found himself saying. "I promised Sophia we'd visit the planetarium today." Surprise flickered across Olivia's face before her professional mask returned. "Of course, sir." Later, as Marcus watched Sophia's face illuminated by the stars projected across the planetarium dome, he felt something crack within him. Her expression of wonder, mouth slightly open, eyes wide and reflecting constellations, reminded him painfully of Catherine, his brilliant, patient wife who had begged him to work less, live more, before cancer stole her from them both. "Daddy, did you know that some stars we see are already dead?" Sophia whispered, not taking her eyes off the ceiling. "The light just takes so long to reach us that we think they're still there." The metaphor wasn't lost on Marcus. He'd been living in the light of a dead star, the ambition that had once seemed so important now feeling hollow in the face of his daughter's loneliness. That evening, as they shared pizza on the balcony of his penthouse, something Catherine would have approved of, his phone rang incessantly. Crisis after crisis demanded his attention, but for once, he let them go to voicemail. "Is your work mad at you?" Sophia asked, pizza sauce dotting her chin. Marcus handed her a napkin. "Work can't get mad, pumpkin, but the people can." "Are they mad you're with me instead?" The question, so innocent yet so incisive, made Marcus pause. "Some of them might be disappointed, but that's okay. I'm where I need to be right now." Sophia studied him with eyes too wise for her age. "Olivia said sometimes people forget what matters until something scares them into remembering." "Olivia said that?" Sophia nodded, taking another enormous bite of pizza. "When I was crying in your office, she said you work so hard because you're scared of letting people down, but that maybe you just need to remember which people matter most." Marcus felt his perception of his efficient, professional assistant shift dramatically. Apparently, she understood him better than he understood himself. That night, after tucking Sophia into the guest bedroom, Marcus found himself staring at his own reflection in the bathroom mirror. The face looking back at him was successful by every conventional measure and utterly failing at the things that mattered most. His phone buzzed with an urgent message from Harrington. Falcone made an offer to the board. "Emergency meeting tomorrow, 7 a.m. Your empire's under attack. Kingsley." Marcus looked at the message, then at the photo of Sophia he'd placed on the counter, a recent school picture he'd had Olivia dig out of his files. For the first time in years, the potential loss of his company wasn't the most terrifying prospect he could imagine. What scared him more was the thought of losing something he'd never really held on to in the first place, his daughter's heart. Bridges built autumn painted Central Park in fiery hues as Marcus and Sophia walked along the winding paths, kicking through fallen leaves. 3 weeks had transformed their relationship from awkward formality to something resembling actual father-daughter connection. It wasn't perfect. Marcus still worked long hours, still missed occasional dinners, but something fundamental had shifted. "Mr. Kingsley?" Olivia's voice came through his earpiece. "The board members are asking when you'll join the call." Marcus glanced at his watch. He was already 20 minutes late for the strategy meeting. "Tell them I'll be there in 15. I'm walking Sophia to school first." "Of course. And, sir, you have lunch with her teacher at noon." "Thank you for the reminder," Marcus replied, disconnecting as they approached the prestigious private school building. Sophia skipped ahead, then turned back with a sudden seriousness. "Will Olivia be at dinner tonight?" "Olivia?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Why would my assistant be at dinner?" Sophia shrugged with exaggerated nonchalance. She likes pasta carbonara, too. And she tells better stories than you do, Marcus laughed. Does she now? She used to be a child psychologist, Sophia said matter-of-factly, before she worked for you. That's why she understands kids better. This revelation stopped Marcus in his tracks. How do you know that? She told me. When we have lunch together sometimes. Sophia adjusted her backpack. She helps me talk about Mom when I'm sad. You always get that scary, quiet look when I mention her. The familiar guilt twisted in Marcus's chest. I didn't realize you needed to talk about Mom more. Everyone needs to talk about the people they miss, Daddy. Sophia's wisdom continued to astonish him. With a quick hug around his waist, she ran off toward her classmates, leaving Marcus contemplating this new information about Olivia. Later that day, after the teacher conference where he learned Sophia had been writing essays about her mother for months, Marcus returned to find Olivia efficiently managing his crisis-laden schedule. You were a psychologist? He asked without preamble, leaning against her desk. Olivia looked up, momentarily startled. Child psychologist, yes. I worked at Mercy Children's Hospital for 6 years. Why the career change? The question came out more demanding than he'd intended. Her hands stilled over the keyboard. My father became ill. The executive assistant position at Kingsley offered better pay, better hours to care for him. A small, sad smile crossed her face. He passed away last year. I didn't know, Marcus said quietly, realizing how little attention he'd paid to her personal life, despite her intimate knowledge of his. It wasn't relevant to my job performance. Mr. Kingsley. Marcus, he corrected automatically. And it explains why you've been so good with Sophia. She told me you have lunch with her? Olivia's professional composure wavered slightly. I hope that's all right. She calls sometimes when she's having a difficult day at school. I thought, it's more than all right, Marcus interrupted. I'm grateful, Olivia, more than I can express. Something unspoken passed between them. Acknowledgement of the bridge she had built, not just to Sophia, but to him as well. For the first time, Marcus saw beyond the efficient assistant to the compassionate woman who had quietly held parts of his life together when he couldn't. That evening, Sophia's wish was granted. Olivia joined them for dinner at Marcus's invitation, bringing homemade pasta carbonara that put his usual caterer's efforts to shame. As Sophia chatted animatedly about her school day, Marcus observed the easy rapport between them with a mixture of gratitude and something warmer he couldn't quite name. Sophia tells me you've been helping her talk about Catherine, Marcus said later as they cleared dishes together. Sophia engrossed in homework at the table. Olivia hesitated. Children process grief differently than adults. She needed someone to listen without falling apart. And I couldn't be that person, Marcus acknowledged, the truth stinging but necessary. You were grieving too, Olivia replied gently. Still are, I think. The perceptiveness in her brown eyes made Marcus feel exposed in a way boardroom adversaries never could. For 3 years, she'd sat outside his office, witnessing his driven, often ruthless business tactics while somehow seeing the wounded man beneath the power suits and billion-dollar deals. The Falcone situation is getting worse, he said, changing the subject to safer territory. They've approached 3 more board members, Olivia nodded, accepting the shift. We'll figure it out. We always do. Though we didn't escape his notice, nor did the fact that for the first time in years, a business crisis didn't feel like his entire world was at stake. The bridges being built between himself, his daughter, and the remarkable woman who had helped construct them felt increasingly like the foundation of something more enduring than any corporate empire. Fortune's true measure. The boardroom hummed with tension as Marcus stared down Victor Falcone across the polished mahogany table. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, matching the stormy atmosphere inside. 6 board members sat between them, their loyalties increasingly uncertain. Your company is bleeding market share, Kingsley, Falcone said, his silver hair immaculate, his smile predatory. Our offer is more than generous considering the circumstances. Marcus kept his expression neutral despite the fury simmering beneath. Falcone Technologies had systematically undermined Kingsley Innovations for months, poaching key developers, spreading rumors to investors, and now attempting this final coup. The circumstances, Marcus replied coolly, being the coordinated campaign your company has waged to depress our stock price. Hardly the basis for an honest valuation. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Without breaking eye contact with Falcone, Marcus subtly checked the message. From Olivia. Sophia's science presentation starts in 30 minutes. She's asking if you'll make it. Marcus's stomach clenched. The solar system diorama they'd worked on together all weekend sat in his car trunk. Sophia had been practicing her presentation for days, proudly explaining to him how she'd painted Neptune herself because it was the planet that never gets enough attention. We need a decision today, Kingsley. Falcone pressed. My patience and this offer expire at close of business. The board chairman, Jeffrey Palmer, cleared his throat. Perhaps we should call a recess for lunch. Resume at 1 o'clock? Marcus nodded curtly, gathering his materials. As the others filed out, Palmer lingered. 3 members are leaning toward Falcone's offer, the older man said quietly. Henderson and Zhao are with you. Mitchell is on the fence. You need to convince him by this afternoon, or we may lose control. I understand, Marcus replied. His mind split between company survival and his daughter's expectant face. In his office, Olivia waited with his lunch and a worried expression. I've already had your driver bring the science project to the school, she said, answering his unspoken question. If you leave now, you can make it for Sophia's presentation, then return for the 1 o'clock session. Marcus checked his watch. Mitchell is the swing vote. I need to talk to him before the meeting resumes. He's in the executive dining room, Olivia confirmed. But Marcus... Her use of his first name still felt intimate, though it had become more common between them in recent weeks. Sophia specifically asked if you would be there. She said it's the most important day of 4th grade. The familiar tug-of-war pulled at him, business versus family, legacy versus love. 6 months ago, the choice would have been automatic. Now, nothing felt simple. Schedule lunch with Mitchell for tomorrow, Marcus decided, grabbing his coat, and have the legal team prepare those defensive measures we discussed. I'll be back by 1:30. Olivia's smile lit something warm in his chest. Already done. The elementary school auditorium buzzed with excitement as parents clutched smartphones, ready to document their children's scientific accomplishments. Marcus slipped into a seat in the back just as Sophia's class filed onto the stage. He spotted her immediately, scanning the audience anxiously. When their eyes met, her entire face transformed. The relief and joy in her expression made his heart constrict. She gave him a small wave, which he returned with an exaggerated thumbs up that made her giggle. One by one, children presented their projects. Finally, Sophia stepped forward with her carefully constructed solar system. Planet suspended by nearly invisible fishing line. Neptune is often called the forgotten planet, she began confidently. But sometimes the things we forget are still really important. They're just waiting for us to notice them again. As she continued her presentation, Marcus's phone vibrated repeatedly with messages from Palmer, from legal, from the CFO, all demanding his immediate attention. For the first time in his career, he switched the device off completely without answering. Some fortunes, he was learning, couldn't be measured in market share or stock prices. When he returned to Kingsley Tower, Mitchell was waiting in his office. Palmer says you missed our lunch, the board member said. Not like you to put anything before business, Kingsley. Marcus set down his briefcase. My priorities have evolved, James. Evolved right when we're facing a takeover? Unfortunate timing, or perhaps perfect timing. Marcus pulled out a folder. These are the patents my team has been quietly developing. They make our AI architecture twice as efficient as anything Falcone has in development. Mitchell's eyebrows rose as he reviewed the documents. This changes the equation substantially. It does. But more importantly, I've realized something. Marcus leaned forward. I built this company to create a legacy. But I already have a legacy. She's 9 years old and just gave a brilliant presentation about Neptune. Understanding dawned on Mitchell's face. Your daughter. If saving Kingsley Innovations means missing more moments like today, then perhaps it's not worth saving. At least not in its current form. Marcus's voice grew stronger with conviction. I've developed a restructuring plan, one that preserves the company's independence while allowing for more sustainable growth. And more importantly, a better work-life balance for everyone, starting with me. By the time the board reconvened, Marcus had secured Mitchell's support. Falcone left the building with thinly veiled threats of future retribution, but Marcus hardly registered them. For the first time in years, he left the office at 5 o'clock. Briefcase lighter, shoulders straighter, heading home to celebrate with his daughter and the woman who had helped him rediscover what wealth truly meant. Golden horizons, spring sunshine streamed through the windows of the newly renovated Kingsley home. Gone was the austere, museum-like quality of the mansion. In its place, comfortable furniture, colorful artwork, much of it Sophia's, and the unmistakable signs of a house that had become a home. Marcus stood in the kitchen, attempting to flip pancakes with limited success. Batter splattered across the counter as he fumbled with the spatula. "You're holding it wrong," Olivia laughed, coming up beside him. She placed her hand over his, adjusting his grip. "Gentle but decisive, remember?" The warmth of her touch lingered even after she stepped away. 6 months had transformed their relationship from professional to personal with a naturalness that still amazed him. What began as gratitude had deepened into respect, then friendship, and finally something neither had expected, but both embraced wholeheartedly. "Daddy!" "Olivia, come quick!" Sophia's voice called from the garden. "The first tomatoes are turning red." The vegetable garden had been Olivia's suggestion, a project the three of them could work on together. Marcus, who once couldn't tell a weed from a seedling, now took ridiculous pride in the straight rows of vegetables they had planted together. Outside, Sophia knelt proudly beside the tomato plants, her hands dirty, her smile radiant. At 10, she was blooming like their garden, more confident, more joyful than the solemn child who had once sneaked into his office seeking connection. "We should invite everyone for a garden party when they're all ripe," Sophia suggested. "Even Mr. Palmer and his grandson." "That's an excellent idea," Olivia agreed, snapping a photo of the tiny green tomatoes with red blushes beginning to appear. Marcus marveled at how naturally they had become a unit, not replacing Catherine's memory, but building something new that honored her by embodying the values she had tried to instill in him: presence, joy, balance. Kingsley Innovations had transformed as well. The restructuring had been painful but necessary, shedding divisions that drained resources while strengthening their core competencies. Marcus had promoted talented individuals who shared his new vision, including a COO who capably handled daily operations, while Marcus focused on strategic direction. Most shocking to the business world had been his announcement of mandatory work-life balance policies, including 6-hour Fridays, flexible remote work options, and generous family leave. The business press had predicted disaster. Instead, productivity rose and talent acquisition became easier than ever. The quarterly reports came in, Marcus mentioned as they headed back inside. "Revenue up 17%. Olivia smiled knowingly. "Turns out happy employees do better work. Who would have thought?" "Not the man I was a year ago," Marcus admitted. He was too busy counting dollars to notice the real wealth around him. Later that evening, after Sophia had gone to bed, Marcus and Olivia sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies emerge in the gathering dusk. His arm rested comfortably around her shoulders. Her head leaned against him. The easy intimacy of two people who had found each other through unexpected circumstances. "I have something for you," Marcus said, reaching into his pocket. He handed her a small velvet box. Olivia opened it to find not a ring. That would come later, they both knew, but a key. "The key to your house?" she asked, confused. "I already have one." "Not to the house," Marcus clarified. "To the foundation. The Catherine Kingsley Foundation for Children's Mental Health. I've endowed it with $20 million to start." He took her hands in his. "I was hoping you might consider leaving your position as my executive assistant to become its first director." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "Marcus, you helped me rebuild my relationship with my daughter. Now I want to help other children and parents find their way back to each other." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Your background in child psychology, your compassion, your organizational brilliance, you're perfect for it. Olivia looked from the key to his face. And us? Working separately after all this time? I think we've proven our connection goes far beyond the office, Marcus said softly. Besides, I'm only working 30 hours a week now, remember? Part of my own restructuring plan. Her laughter turned to tears again as she nodded. Yes, yes to all of it. As they sealed the moment with a kiss, the porch light illuminated the 3 sets of handprints they had pressed into concrete at the garden's edge. Large, medium, and small, a family constellation forming its own unique pattern against the darkening sky. Inside, Sophia slept peacefully, her dreams no longer haunted by absence, but filled with presence. And Marcus Kingsley, once defined solely by the empire he had built, now measured his worth by moments rather than millions, by pancake batter on countertops, by tomatoes ripening in sunlight, and by the love that had found him when he least expected it, but most needed it. The fortune he had truly been seeking all along.